Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. The blame game continues as everyone's scratching their head trying to figure out how Kamala Harris lost last week's election. The Washington Post Editorial Board declared over the weekend that Vice President Kamala Harris's cover-up of President Joe Biden's mental decline is one of the reasons her party suffered major defeats last week. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in a final act as leader, says he will not allow Pennsylvania GOP Senate candidate, Senator-elect, to attend the orientation this week since current Senator Bob Casey has not conceded the race. We'll talk about the latest details on that. Remember how all those Hollywood celebrities were coming out in support of Kamala Harris? Those final days where they were having all these campaigns and rallies, and you saw all these Hollywood liberals there endorsing the vice president. One would think that the liberals were just coming out to support their candidate because it was their patriotic duty, that they felt like she was the best candidate, right? Well, you're not going to believe this, but evidently some of them were being paid, and paid very well. We have the details of that for you as well. And while we're talking about Hollywood, remember how all the Hollywood types were threatening to leave the country if Donald Trump won in 2016? Some promise the same this year, too. We'll take a look at some of the more prominent liberals who promised to leave us alone, and where are they today?
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
As we kick off another week, welcome into this special Veterans Day show. So why do we celebrate Veterans Day? For many, it's just a day off work or school, maybe a chance to shop some sales or watch a parade. But Veterans Day is so much more than that. It's a day dedicated to honoring the men and women who have served in the United States Armed Forces, our veterans. Veterans Day has its roots in World War I, the Great War, as it was known, officially ended on November the 11th, 1918, when the Treaty of Versailles was signed. But it was the ceasefire agreement known as the Armistice that took effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For this reason, November the 11th became known as Armistice Day. Originally, Armistice Day was intended to honor the soldiers who fought and died in World War I, but in 1954, after World War II and the Korean War, the U.S. Congress decided to expand the scope of the holiday to include all veterans, not just those who had served in the First World War. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the bill. Armistice Day officially became Veterans Day, a time to recognize the contributions and the sacrifices of all American veterans. Unlike Memorial Day, which honors those who have died in service, Veterans Day is a celebration of those who have served, living or deceased. It's an opportunity to thank our veterans for their dedication, their bravery, and the freedoms we enjoy because of their service. From the soldiers of the Revolutionary War to the service members deployed today, Veterans Day is about acknowledging and the commitment of our military personnel, whether they served in times of war or in peace. Now, you might be wondering, what can you do to honor veterans on this day? Well, it's simple. Attend a Veterans Day event in your community, for example. Reach out to a veteran you know to thank them personally. If you see them in a coffee shop, buy them a cup of coffee, buy their breakfast, buy their lunch. It's these little gestures that make a difference. In the words of John F. Kennedy, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. So today, let's not just say thank you for your service. Let's remember that and thank them for their service throughout the day. So if you see a veteran, be sure and let them know that you appreciate what they've done so that you and I can talk on the radio or talk on a podcast. So while you're enjoying your time off today, if you're off, just take a minute and remember the men and women who have served our country, fighting for our freedoms so that we can have a day off. Remember how all those Hollywood celebrities were coming out in support of Kamala Harris these past few weeks? I just assumed, and maybe you did too, that it was because they thought it was their patriotic duty to support someone they thought would be a good president. Guess what we learned over the weekend, though? Vice President Kamala Harris paid Oprah Winfrey, and I remember thinking when I learned that Oprah Winfrey was going to appear with Kamala Harris at some of her campaign rallies, and then when she endorsed her, Oprah Winfrey traditionally doesn't endorse political candidates. But I guess she does when you wave $1 million in front of her. It's just one example of the millions the campaign spent on various entertainers during Vice President Kamala Harris, her failed bid for president. $1 million, according to the Washington Times, was paid to Harpo Productions, Oprah Winfrey's company, on October 15th, according to a report that the Washington Examiner reported on over the weekend. Winfrey also appeared at Harris's final rally in Philadelphia on the eve of Election Day, with the talk show host offering a rare endorsement of a presidential candidate. She said, "We're not voting for values and integrity. We're voting for healing over hate." Well, evidently you're not voting for integrity there if you're being paid $1 million to do this. Winfrey wasn't the only star that Harris's campaign spent money on. According to the Washington Examiner, reports also reveal that the campaign spent big on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Remember all of the attention that was paid to this young lady, Alex Cooper, who had the vice president on her podcast, Call Her Daddy? Well, according to the report, the campaign spent millions of dollars on this and other similar podcasts and other events. As far as the Call Her Daddy podcast, they spent money building the set that we saw, if you watched any of it. They paid to have that built in a hotel just for that segment. And again, when I saw it, I thought, gosh, that's a nice set for a podcast. Well, no wonder. The vice president's campaign paid for it, a tidy sum, we're told. But in addition to that, they paid big bucks, some $20 million plus, to include performances by John Bon Jovi in Detroit, Christina Aguilera in Las Vegas, Katy Perry in Pittsburgh, and Lady Gaga in Philadelphia. And then this 2 Chainz performance at a rally 3 days before the election down in Atlanta. Republican political strategist Brad Todd told the Examiner with regard to the massive spending, money can't buy you love or a good candidate. That's for sure. They found out the hard way that money can't buy a candidate, can they? Todd said advertising is a pretty important source of information for swing voters. It no doubt matters, but it's not enough. It doesn't matter if you have the wrong message and it's not delivered in a compelling way. What her campaign was missing was any effort to break with the unpopular administration she has been such a big part of. And he's right with that. As we continue to watch the returns be certified, we know that we have a majority in the U.S. Senate. The U.S. House still trying to get that majority. As we will be wrapping up the vote counting this week. We will know sometime this week, hopefully. Of course, the president was declared the winner in Arizona over the weekend, which means he won all 7 of the swing states. He wiped her out in all of the swing states. That is unheard of. And speaking of the Senate, a group of Senate GOP lawmakers say that they're ready to defy Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and that they will personally escort Republican Senator-elect David McCormick of Pennsylvania into the Senate chamber so that he can participate in the new member orientation. So here's the story there. Chuck Schumer said over the weekend that he will not allow Dave McCormick to attend the orientation because Senator Bob Casey has not conceded the race yet. Now, the AP has called it. Everybody agrees that Dave McCormick has won it, but Bob Casey is holding out, saying that he believes that he still has a chance. Senator Mike Lee of Utah wrote on X, "I'm willing to personally escort Dave McCormick into the Capitol for new senator orientation. I'd like to see how they'd keep him out if he literally walked into the room where it happens." Mr. Lee said that Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri has indicated he would join him as well. He said, "I would welcome other senators to join us." Senator Katie Britt of Alabama responded saying, "I'll be right there alongside you, Mike. Dave McCormick is the senator-elect for Pennsylvania and deserves to be at orientation alongside every other member of his freshman class." Senate Republicans who are about to regain a majority in the chamber became angered when it was known to members that Mr. Schumer would not allow Mr. McCormick to participate in the new member orientation that will be happening on Wednesday. And again, only because Bob Casey refuses to concede. I don't know why they're surprised that Democrats are acting like that. I mean, that's just typical behavior of the Democrats. Are you still happy about last week's election results? What a weekend. Boy, we just had so much fun talking about it, how everything turned out, and just how God had his hand in all of it. Wow. This is a good time to be an American. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. This year, I really thought I was going to have to boycott the holidays. I was going to lock myself away and not come out until 2025. But after finding PhD weight loss, you can bet I'll be at every holiday party I'm invited to. That's because PhD weight loss helped me take control with great confidence, support, and my new healthy body. The best part? PhD weight loss did it all without harmful drugs that keep you dependent on them to maintain your weight loss. It's a natural, medication-free approach to weight loss crafted to naturally diminish food-related thoughts, hunger, and cravings, making your weight loss journey more sustainable and enjoyable. Take it from me, I lost 33 pounds. The PhD weight loss program teaches you not just what to eat and when, but also how to think differently about food and finally let go of those cravings and get rid of the hunger naturally. Don't lock yourself away this holiday season. Call PhD Weight Loss today at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. It's quite amusing how Democrat strategists and all the powers that be, the liberal media, who are still in shock. They just can't believe that Donald Trump won as big as he did last week. They can't believe he won. They certainly can't believe that he just wiped Kamala Harris out, even though they threw everything they had at him. My buddy Mike Gallagher is in town, came in yesterday, and we were having dinner last night just talking about it, how the mainstream media did everything they possibly could to throw this election to Kamala Harris, and it still didn't work because they're so out of tune with the American public. Even the late night talk show host, those shows used to be fun. There aren't any longer because they're so biased. They were so opposed to Donald Trump. And they're so out of tune with their audience. I can't imagine, and maybe that's why some of those shows are literally hanging on by a shoestring, because they are so out of tune with their audience. Why did Kamala Harris and her Democrat Party lose so miserably? That's the million-dollar question. It's an easy one, though, because they ignored the American people. The American people aren't as stupid as they thought we were, or we are. The Washington Post Editorial Board declared that Vice President Kamala Harris's cover-up of President Joe Biden's mental decline is one of the primary reasons that her party suffered such major defeats last week. In an editorial published over the weekend, the board argued that Harris and the White House's constant denial of Biden's mental acuity issues destroyed the party's believability, and Americans voted accordingly. The subheadline read, "Democrats' cover-up of the president's decline hurt their claim of being the party of truth." Well, look, we knew they weren't the party of truth. We knew that before they started lying about Joe Biden. The board wrote, "The credibility problems that Ms. Harris is repeated defense of Mr. Biden's sharpness illustrated were part of the reason Democrats met defeat. And I think they're right. The other part of it, though, was this was just another flip-flop on the part of Kamala Harris. This is another instance of where you cannot believe what she says. She'll say anything that she thinks is beneficial for herself, to promote herself. The editorial began by criticizing Harris for denying special counsel Robert Hur's claim from February that Biden is sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Hur made the assessment in his report on his investigation into Biden's classified documents case. We talked about it back then. The editorial board recalled Vice President Kamala Harris didn't just call special counsel Robert Hur's report gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate when it came out in February. She claimed that he was clearly politically motivated and impugned his integrity, providing an example of just how how far the Democrat Party members would go to hide Joe Biden's health issues. Speaking to reporters, Ms. Harris reacted furiously. The way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not have been more wrong, the board wrote, adding that Mr. Hur has been repeatedly vindicated during the intervening 9 months, and he has. He knew what he was dealing with. And this is an example where the media was complicit as well. The media went right along with it. They seemed to be okay with the fact that they could not interview Joe Biden, that Joe Biden was never made available to them. They were okay with that, just like they were okay with Kamala Harris hiding throughout the campaign, too, not sitting down for major interviews or not holding a single press conference during the campaign, her short campaign. The Washington Post Editorial Board continued, it's now acknowledged almost universally that Mr. Biden should not have sought a second term. But the Democrat establishment denied the obvious and propped him up politically even as evidence of his decline mounted. The party only admitted the truth when Biden's debate performance forced it to, the Post Editorial Board said, arguing that this late about-face revealed the Democrats' problems with credibility to the American people. They went on to write, Democrats tried to make fidelity to science, facts, and truth their distinguishing characteristics as a party. The White House's aggressive cover-up of Mr. Biden's decline undermined that claim. Look, we didn't trust them before, but when they tried to convince us that everything was okay with Uncle Joe, we knew they were liars because it was real easy to watch the man and know that he wasn't okay, to know that he wasn't capable of holding the highest office in the land. They went on to write, Mr. Biden's allies concocted terms such as cheap fakes to dismiss embarrassing video clips in which Mr. Biden appeared dazed, confused, tired, and inaudible. Allies of the president frequently labeled content they didn't approve of as disinformation, cheapening the term. When a few journalists reported accurately on Mr. Biden's decline, the White House fed critical talking points about their stories to others in the media. The harder they spun, the less believable they became, the Post says. And even though Democrat figures admitted to Biden's problems and forcing him to step away from the reelection, the editorial board described how the Biden administration still covered for him to the bitter end. It called out the White House stenographers for changing the transcript to try and lessen the damage of his garbage comments just last week. The board concluded all of this took a toll on believability. Polls showed more voters believed that Mr. Trump would actually implement his campaign promises than Ms. Harris would hers. The piece did clarify the Post's belief that Harris's apparent avoidance of candor on Biden's health was not the decisive factor in this week's election. However, it said it reveals the Democrat Party members need to live up to their billing as truth tellers in order to resuscitate their brand. Well, it did permanent damage to their brand, because it'll take quite a while, maybe decades, for the American people to once again trust the Democrat Party, the same party that tried to push Joe Biden on us once again, knowing he wasn't capable of serving 4 more years. Can you imagine where we would be if Joe Biden had stayed on the ticket and if he had been elected? Can you imagine 4 more years of that man fumbling around, stumbling around? And what our adversaries in the world would think and the advantage they would take of that? It is scary to think about it. And yes, Kamala Harris went right along with it. She was complicit with it. She could have called it out, but she didn't. She lied just like the rest of them. And that's why the American people sent her a message loud and clear last week. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. President-elect Donald Trump announced the formation of his inaugural committee. I'll get to that in just a minute. I want to add one more thing before I get off of my soapbox on Kamala Harris. The Democrats are so desperately spinning out of control, trying to make excuses for Kamala Harris, and still just so upset that she's not going to be the first female president. So their latest scheme to get Kamala in the Oval Office, listen to this now if you've missed it. Even though she failed miserably last week, Jamal Simmons, her former communications director, is suggesting that President Joe Biden step down to make Harris the first female president in the U.S. history. Now, it was one thing that they pushed him out of the nomination that he won, that they pushed him off of the ticket. Now they're wanting to push him out of the Oval Office just so that she can say she was president for a month or two. Simmons urged Joe Biden to resign, claiming it would be a powerful final move to solidify his legacy as a transitional leader and make Kamala Harris the first female president. This despite her horrible defeat by the American people last week. Simmons argued that Biden's resignation would turn the tables on Trump and disrupt his narrative. He believes this dramatic move could energize the Democrat Party and offer a fresh perspective ahead of the 2025 political landscape. This guy is, they're all, if they're even seriously considering this, it really shows you what bad shape they're in. One key point in Simmons' proposal is avoiding the scenario where Harris would preside over the January 6th certification of Trump's victory, a difficult position given the election outcome. I imagine it will be difficult. But hey, she's going to have to put her big boy pants on and do it, as badly as it'll hurt. Simmons suggests that Biden's resignation could prevent this situation and ease Harris's role. So he wants the president of the United States to resign so she can be elevated to be president for a month or so, and so she won't have to sit there and certify Donald Trump, who just defeated her so badly last week. This is how these people think. This is and he's dead serious. This isn't a joke, as Joe Biden would say. Not joking here. Wow. That's just how desperate they are. Surely Joe Biden won't fall for this again. All right, so back on the inaugural committee. President Trump appointed former U.S. Senator from Georgia, Kelly Loeffler, as its chair. The committee, which will plan and execute the upcoming inaugural festivities, will be co-chaired by Steve Witkoff, a prominent New York real estate investor and a Trump ally and friend for many years. In a statement released by the campaign, Trump expressed his gratitude to the millions of supporters who voted for him, highlighting the importance of the event as a celebration of the American people. Are you going to go? Peg and I have already made our plans. We booked our travel. We have our hotel. In fact, Gallagher and I, before we even left Washington last week, we made arrangements to have our hotel and all for the inauguration. This is going to be a historic day, a time to be in Washington, D.C. We're not going to miss it. Trump said in his statement, on election night, we made history, and I have the extraordinary honor of having been elected the 47th president of the United States, thanks to tens of millions of hardworking Americans across the nation who supported our America First agenda. The Trump-Vance Inaugural Committee will honor this magnificent victory in a celebration of the American people and our nation. Trump added that the inaugural event will not only mark the start of his administration, but will also reflect his vision for the next 4 years. He said, together we'll celebrate this moment steeped in history and tradition, and then get to work to achieve the most incredible future for our people, restoring strength, success, and common sense to the Oval Office. Now, Kelly Loeffler has been a significant figure in conservative politics. For those of you in Georgia, you know her well. She'll play a key role in planning the inauguration. Her appointment is seen as a strategic choice, reflecting Trump's ongoing effort to build a strong coalition of loyal supporters as he prepares to return to the White House. You may recall that Ms. Loeffler was appointed to the U.S. Senate in Georgia in 2019 and unfortunately lost a special election to Democrat Raphael Warnock in 2021. It was a tough time. It was all during that COVID period. And what a tough loss for the people of Georgia to lose that Senate seat. We'll get it back. I'm predicting that Raphael Warnock is going to be a one-term senator. We're going to have another shot at him. Since leaving the Senate, Loeffler has continued to influence conservative politics. She founded Greater Georgia, which is a 501c4 advocacy group focused on voter engagement and promoting conservative issues. Her group launched an ad campaign aimed at Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, criticizing her handling of the crime in the Atlanta area. One of the ads claims murder, rapes, burglaries are all on the rise. She's focused on herself, her political ambitions, high-profile prosecutions, and profiting off partisan lawfare, all at the expense of families living in fear and innocent lives being lost. Loeffler has also been vocal on social media, particularly on X, where she recently responded to comments made by Mark Cuban, who suggested Trump didn't have strong women in his circle. She responded, I've been CEO and professional of a professional sports team owner just like you. I'm one of the millions of strong conservative women who back Trump. You might think we're stupid or that we're garbage. We think it's time to replace you and Kamala with leaders who don't hate us. As chair of the Trump-Vance Inaugural Committee, Ms. Loeffler will oversee the organization of various inaugural events, which are expected to feature traditional celebrations like the swearing-in ceremony, of course, the inaugural parade, and lots of balls and galas, and I'm looking so forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Trump's focus on returning to some of the more traditional inaugural events highlights his campaign's commitment to connecting with voters. You're going to see things that maybe we haven't seen in recent inaugural celebrations. It's going to be all about our country and all about the mandate that that the American people have given to Donald Trump. Trump's victory in Georgia was one of the key moments in the 2024 election. It surprised some analysts who had predicted that it would be much closer. His margin of victory, estimated at about 120,000 votes, was seen as a significant win in this hotly contested battleground state. They had underestimated him in Georgia like they underestimated him in Pennsylvania and in all the other 7 swing states. They underestimated him in the blue wall. He defeated her in all 3 states of the blue wall. So we got some celebrating to do. And speaking of celebrating, you know how back and this started in 2016. when Amy Schumer told the BBC Newsnight that she thought about moving out of the U.S. if Donald Trump successfully became president. Well, he did. She said, my act will change because I'll need to learn to speak Spanish because I'll move to Spain or somewhere. It's beyond my comprehension if Trump won. It's just too crazy. Well, he did, as you know, and Schumer's still here. Amy Schumer is still trying to tell jokes. Why didn't she move? She's one of several, though, because we hear that. We hear that from these idiotic Hollywood performers who think we care whether they live here or not. Barbara Streisand, for example. 1 year before last Tuesday's election, she appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where she declared she can't live in the U.S. if Trump is reelected. Streisand, of course, spoke very highly of President Joe Biden and his administration, saying that she likes the current head of the country. She said, I think he's done a good job. I think he's compassionate. He's smart. He supports the right things. She previously shared the same sentiment before the 2016 election, telling 60 Minutes that she would leave the U.S. and move to Australia or Canada. Well, Barbara, why are you still here? Go ahead and book that one-way flight to Australia. I'd prefer Australia over Canada because that puts you a lot further away from us. Bryan Cranston, same thing. In 2016, on an appearance of the bestseller Experiment, Cranston disclosed that he would move away from the U.S. if Trump won. He added, it's not real to me that would happen. I hope to God it won't. Well, it did, and he's still here. And he has suggested he'd do the same thing this year, again, suspecting that there's no way Donald Trump would ever win. Well, he did. So, Mr. Cranston, when will you be leaving? We're not planning a going away party either. Bruce Springsteen, the boss, he too had said that he would move to Australia. He said, every time we have nothing but good times down there, it's always a treat to come. Love the people, love the geography, great place for motorcycle trips. It's close to our hearts. Springsteen added, if Trump is reelected, which he will not be, I'm predicting right now he's going to lose, but if by some chance he does, I'll see you on the next big plane. All right, Mr. Bruce Springsteen. You too, make your travel plans. Don't let the door hit you as you exit. Cher, same thing, told The Guardian in October of last year that she would, if Trump won again, she said, I almost got an ulcer the last time. If he gets in, who knows? This time I will leave the country. Okay, Cher, maybe you and Bruce Springsteen can charter a plane and go together. There's others. John Legend, Miley Cyrus, Samuel Lee Jackson, Sharon Stone, all these Hollywood folks. Who thinks they're really going to leave? Who thinks that they will leave our country? Text me. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. And by the way, Whoopi Goldberg was on that list too. Whoopi had said that, she said, maybe it's time for me to move. You know, I can afford to go. Well, bye-bye, Whoopi. We won't miss you on The View either. You know how much Peg and I love our Jesse and Simon, our two little Cocker Spaniels, our little furry friends. They're special to us. They're a big part of our family. So we can certainly relate to the pain that ESPN football analyst Kirk Herbstreit is experiencing when he announced the death of his golden retriever, Ben. Have you been following this story? Ben has become a popular and a celebrity in his own right at college football stadiums around the country, where he would travel with his daddy, Herb Street, when they would visit as part of ESPN's College Game Day. This past Saturday, ahead of the LSU-Alabama matchup from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, ESPN paid a special tribute to Ben, narrated by Herb Street himself.
Dogs are known as man's best friend. But what do you call a dog that becomes a nation's best friend? You call him Ben. I'll be honest with you, when I first started bringing Ben on the road, it was for me. I needed a travel companion. Hotel rooms can sometimes feel like islands of solitude, and his warm presence became my anchor to home, making my journeys feel less like wandering and more like belonging. When I was working in a hotel room, or a broadcast booth, or on the College Game Day set, reaching down and feeling that fur at my feet, it made me feel like I was home. Ben wasn't out here to become a social media star, but he became one, just by being himself. The Rose Bowl named him its Chief Happiness Officer, and that's exactly what he did. He made everyone happy, and he did it without even trying. He just wagged that tail or nestled up against strangers like they were family, and that's what they became. On planes, in hotel lobbies, on the beach, in the mountains, it didn't matter if you were a college student, a movie star, a national championship quarterback, or even a state governor. Ben didn't care who you were. Everyone deserved his love. I think we can all learn from that. At a time when everything seems to be aimed at dividing us, our love of football unites us every weekend. What I experienced with Ben was that, and so much more. Dogs' only flaw as a species is they don't live long enough, but the warmth they give us, that never goes away. So neither will Ben. This man's best friend, who became America's best friend.
Wow, I get teary-eyed just hearing it again. Boy, don't we just love our little furry friends. On our text line, Joanne writes, "Hey, Joey, I read somewhere that Mitch McConnell is holding a secret vote on Wednesday for the new Senate Majority Leader. I'm hoping you will encourage your listeners to flood the phone lines to Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham. Rick Scott is the only good candidate." Yes, they are. It's not really a secret vote. It's the GOP caucus, as will the Democrat, but the GOP on Wednesday will meet to reorganize, where they elect their leadership for the next 2 years. And yes, it is a closed session. It's not open to the public. The press is not invited. And yes, Rick Scott would be a great choice to take over Mitch McConnell. And I think he has a good shot at it. Appreciate your comment there, Joanne. Sherry writes, Genesis 50:20. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present result to preserve many people alive. I've had a lot of you send me scripture similar to this, suggesting, and I agree, that God played a role in last week's Republican victory and with Donald Trump's victory specifically. God did not spare him, not once, but twice, to only let him lose in the election last year. I believe that in my heart. Scott from Toccoa writes, Joey, was it just me or did Biden seem absolutely giddy during his speech last week? Seemed almost happy that Kamala lost. Well, you know, my theory all along has been that Joe Biden really didn't care if Kamala won. In fact, I think he probably said some of the things he said to try to sabotage her candidacy. And what about Jill Biden showing up to vote in a red outfit? That has been circulated on social media quite a bit, and the speculation continues to rise if she really meant that to signify that she was voting for Donald Trump. We won't know until she writes her memoirs. Texter, thinking the press secretary's voice is worse and annoying more than Kamala. Please don't play a recording of her voice again, at least only 2 more months till her annoying voice goes away. He's talking about Karine Jean-Pierre, And I guess I did have some clips from her last week. Ginger writes, Biden and KJP were both trying to make a point that this time will be a peaceful transfer of power, while Trump didn't with January the 6th, as if to say they're better than that. That's all this talk about. And Joe Biden mentioned it multiple times about the peaceful transfer of power. Yes, you're right, Ginger. That was just a dig saying that Donald Trump encouraged the protest on January the 6th. Tony writes, Joey, it's going to be so good when Trump takes over so we don't have to hear Karine Jean-Pierre continue to spew her lies. Honestly, I wished he'd let Candace Owens take her job. Powerful voice and woman. A lot of people are hoping that Candace Owens might be in the running for press secretary. She'd be a great one. Donald Trump could certainly choose a lot of other people who would make a lot worse press secretary. I hate to spoil this for you, though. I don't think Candace Owens would ever consider accepting. Candace Owens is doing pretty good by herself, and she has a great mission, traveling around the country, speaking to groups about young people being involved, about Christians being involved. I don't know that she's willing to give up her mission, and she considers it a ministry. I don't know that she would be willing to give that up, or she would think that her time would be better spent up there in front of a group of liberal reporters every day, giving them talking points. I don't know. She'd be a good one, though. And boy, would she put the press in their place. Jennifer writes, hey, Joey, this is Jill Biden on her way to vote. Oh, Jennifer sent me a photo of Jill Biden in the red outfit. Jennifer says, I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump. That's exactly what Jill Biden was saying. You think? Hey, I'd love to get your comments on that. Do you think Jill Biden really did vote for Donald Trump? Did that red outfit signify her support? Or was she just playing with Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats? Send me an email. Text me. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.